All right, so we already went over the president, who he is, what he does. Now we're going to look at the vice president. This is kind of the second most important person in the executive branch. So um, the vice president is the president's like right-hand man. So our current vice president, his name's Mike Pence. 46 men have served as vice president in the history of the United States. Nine of them, which is about 1 in 5, become president by succession. What succession means is that the president either resigns or dies in office. Okay, so succession means that the president died or resigned and the vice president took over. Now, 14 of them later went on to be elected president themselves, the most recent being George H.W. Bush, or George Bush Sr. So, there are 3 qualifications to becoming vice president. They should sound familiar from the last video. One, you have to be a natural-born citizen, to live in the United States for at least 14 years, and be 35 years old. They are the exact same qualifications to be president. The vice president's salary is the same as that of the Chief Justice of the United States and the Speaker of the House. Currently, it is $227,300 per year. So, vice presidents by succession. So, vice presidents that succeeded the presidency. William Harrison passed away of pneumonia. We think. That's a historian's best guess is pneumonia. It was actually a mysterious illness at the time. John Tyler took over. Zachary Taylor had a stomach infection. Millard Fillmore took over. Zachary Taylor is actually a really important president. He actually stopped the Civil War before it started. Well, I mean, it later ended up happening anyway, but it would have happened 20 years earlier if Zachary Taylor didn't put some people in check. So Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, and William McKinley were all assassinated. Warren G. Harding passed away of an undisclosed illness. FDR had a brain hemorrhage. JFK got assassinated, and Nixon ended up resigning. So, beginning in 1841, there's been a 20-year cycle of presidential deaths from 1840 to 1960. Every president elected in the year ending in a 0 had died in office. Reagan apparently broke the cycle when he has survived a near-fatal assassination attempt in 1981. So what if the president dies? We need to ensure that the government continues to function. So how is that accomplished? We have these rules that govern succession. In order for a person to become president, the succession is the order that people become president if the president is no longer able to function. So in 1841, we had this informal practice of the vice president succeeding the president. In 1967, the practice of succession was added to the Constitution with the adoption of the 25th Amendment. So this is the order that people are, the order of succession. So if the president dies, then the vice president becomes president. If the president and the vice president dies, then it's the Speaker of the House. If the Speaker of the House dies too, then it's the President pro tempore. If President pro tempore dies, then the Secretary of State, then the Secretary of Treasury, then Defense, then Attorney General, Secretary of Interior, Secretary of Agriculture, so on and so forth. So what does he do? The president has 2 major jobs. One, he presides over the Senate, and 2, he helps determine if the president is disabled. He's the president in waiting. So he helps determine if the president can no longer serve as president. One benefit the vice president has is that under no circumstances can they be fired. All the president's other appointees, all the cabinet members, can be fired and replaced, but not the vice president. So now, those are like the official roles of the vice president, but the real role of the vice president is to balance the ticket. What balancing the ticket means is that the person running for president chooses a running mate, a vice presidential candidate that's going to strengthen their chances to being elected. So they do this by choosing a vice president from a specific area, geography, or who follows a certain political ideology, has a certain race or gender. They do it to influence more people to vote for them. So, how does somebody become president? Well, in the U.S. Constitution, it's never addressed how people run for president. So there are very few federal or state laws that regulate presidential nominations. And so what ends up happening is that we have these two major political parties in the United States, and we allow the political parties, each party, to pick their representative who's going to run for president. So our major political parties are Republicans and the Democrats. So there are really two campaigns for presidency. The first campaign is that of the primaries. The primary campaign for presidency is a contest within a political party. So if you have the Republican primaries, the Republicans are running against other Republicans. If you have a Democratic primaries, Democrats are running against other Democrats. After one person wins the primaries, then those two people from each political party end up meeting in a general election. The general election is what determines the president of the United States. So the general election is a competition between the Republicans and the Democrats to determine who's going to be the president. Today, 42 states hold some form of a presidential primary. Those that don't have primaries have caucuses. Caucuses are where voters meet at their local districts and vote directly for their nominee. Whoever wins the primaries and the caucuses ends up going on to being announced at the national convention of that political party. So after the primaries, each party has a convention. The convention has three goals. One is to name the party's official presidential candidate. Two is to bring various factions within the political party together to support their candidate. And three, to adopt a platform that they're going to run on to get people to support that candidate for president of the United States. A platform is a series of principles and objectives that the person running for president wants to accomplish once they become president. So that's going to wrap us up for this video. The next video we're going to focus on the Electoral College and wrap things up with the executive branch.